Welcome back. You are watching a special report on the drought situation in the country. And of course, remember, you can interact with us on our socials. We are at KBC Channel 1 across the social media platforms. My personal Twitter handle is at Betty Kiptum. We shall be sampling some of your views during this particular broadcast. Now we want to head to Kitui County, which is one of the counties that is affected by drought. Our reporters team has been there this whole week. John Jacob Curia is standing by to bring us the report from Kitui County, as well as a town hall that will be asking some very pertinent questions. John Jacob Curia, take it over.
Good evening. Thank you, Betty. We're live from the Kitui Multipurpose Hall in Kitui Central of Kitui County. Kitui County is one of the counties affected by the ongoing drought. About 188,000 people are in dire need of relief from government. And we're going to discuss the problem as is and the solutions as proposed. I have two stakeholders here. One of them is the Kitui Central Member of Parliament, the Honorable Makali Mulu, who also wears the hat of being a member of the Budget Committee. So as we talk about government response, we'll also see how government really, or rather how the planning in terms of budget reallocation has been. I also have the County Commissioner of the Kitui County, that is Erastus Mbui, who also joins us live on set. We also have a live audience with us. There's a mini town hall, and at some point we'll be giving them time to ask questions, probably to the guests in studio or the ones here as we discuss the drought situation in Kitui. First of all, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I will start with you, Mheshimiwa Makali, before the County Commissioner describes the situation for us. And from a national perspective, being a member of a budget committee, in terms of response by government in this drought time, do you think as Parliament you had allocated enough money? Was the government prepared to adequately respond to this emerging humanitarian crisis?
Yeah, thank you. Let me start by welcoming the KBC team to Kitui Central, or Kitui Town in particular, the Kitui Central constituency, which is also in Kitui County. As you ask, I'm sure all of us were not aware that the drought will be this severe. I know the basis of that, I will not be able to say whether we've allocated enough money, but what I know is there is money. So what we normally do every year is we do our budgets, is that there is also what we call the contingency fund. Contingency fund is a fund which is provided in the Constitution. And the money put in that fund is supposed to address national emergencies. So the law says you can allocate up to a maximum of 10 million, but then it depends on what the Cabinet Secretary Treasury allocates on an annual basis. So this particular financial year, the amount allocated is 2 billion at the national level. But at the same time, if you look at the county government, the law also makes provision that as the county governments make their budget, you allocate 5% emergency. So you realize there's some money at the national level, there's some money at the county level, which is supposed to address emergencies when they arise. Now, the question is that money enough, as we are discussing? Depending on the scope of what we are discussing, the money might not be enough. But our Constitution also makes another provision. It says, Article 223, it provides for what we call a supplementary budget. And the government is mandated through a constitutional provision to use money which has not been appropriated by Parliament and come to Parliament later for approval or legalization. So you realize that even though the amount might be in the budget and there is not enough, but the government has that free hand to say, because of the drought in the country now, Treasury can spend more money than in the budget and then come to Parliament for us to approve. Okay. And I want to tell you, for the many years I've been in Parliament, members of Parliament have always approved resources which have been spent by the executive before approval, so long as those resources are used for national emergencies. So I want to assure Kenyans that the executive cannot always use money and come to Parliament for approval. And members of Parliament will be more than willing to approve. And only under one condition, it is a national emergency. And I do believe drought is a national emergency.
Which has not been declared just yet?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk to the County Commissioner, Kitui County, and probably localize the conversation this evening. You were telling us about 188,550 people are in dire need, particularly in Kitui County. Yes. How are you responding to ensure, first of all, there is equity in the distribution of relief to these people that badly need it?
Thank you for the question. First of all, the tabulation is based on constituencies. Okay. With the most affected being Mwingi North with 39,961, or 691, 39,691, and the least affected is Kitui Central with 6,260. In between the other 6, because there are 8 constituencies. But in terms of sub-counties, national government sub-counties, we have around 19 of them in Kitui. And on various times since November, at least the government has been able to distribute around 300 bags of rice and 260 beans. And that is on the minimum, at least. And this one is supposed to target those who are most affected, those in immediate need of relief supply, so that at least they can afford a meal a day. And on top of that, we have been collaborating with the county government in what we call County Steering Committee, which we co-chair with the governor. Okay. And that's in concurrence with what Mheshimiwa is saying, that the county government has some funds allocated for emergencies, and the bigger burden goes to the national government. We were able to do our estimate through guidance by National Drought Management Authority, and that's how we arrived at the figure to advise the national government, and plans are underway to continue supplying food to the needy areas as per how they deserve, depending on the magnitude of the problem that they're having. It will be targeting the 19 sub-counties. So that's one of the interventions. Of course, there are others, including cash transfer for the vulnerable groups. We have 39,000 beneficiaries who were identified before. There is also the distribution of relief during the period since November has costed around 124 million
in Kitui County.
In Kitui County.
Okay.
What has been delivered here, and I think you are also able to verify from the ground that indeed fund has been received, and also the money that goes to the vulnerable kids, targeting the children, which is also around 15,000 across the country. So there are various efforts that are being done by the government to address the issue.
Okay, fantastic. Mheshimiwa Makali, Kitui is vast, a very vast county. And that is why I was asking the question of adequacy and fairness and equity in distribution. Do you think the government response, from your own assessment, has shown readiness to respond to that emerging humanitarian crisis in Kitui County?
From where I sit, I think the issue of drought, and you know, normally what happens in drought, it leads to famine or lack of food, because normally the rains will have failed. So, in terms of being ready, the way I look at this problem, and to us who live in this county and the neighboring counties, these issues are historical. If you look at the history of Kitui, you realize that drought is nothing new. Almost every 2 years, we go through this. And actually, you'll be surprised. Already droughts have been documented in Kenya. They moved back all the way to 1923. And if you ask the old men here, they will tell you that some of our elders, those old days were not able to say when they were born. Like now, if you ask me, I will say I was born this date, this month. And the only thing which would determine when you were born was droughts which were actually named after them. So someone would say, you are Katongelele, so to me, this thing of drought is nothing new to us. And that's why we see, anytime we look at the government, we see a deliberate way or move of not addressing our problem. Okay. I want to share some experience. I did work in Sudan at some point as a consultant. And you realize that Sudan is a desert, more than Kitui. It's a total desert. What have they done? They have used the River Nile, which comes from this country, originates from Lake Victoria here. They have done a tunnel, very long tunnel, about 1,000 kilometers. And they get the water from River Nile all the way interior to their land. And that's the water they are using to plant sugar, which we buy from them, which is even cheaper than our sugar. So why am I saying this? I'm saying, when I look at the history of this country, there has been a deliberate move. And I think if you know the history of the country, we used to have what we used to call this seasonal paper #1, which is on African socialism and its application to economic planning. Now, what did that policy paper do? That policy paper deliberately decided that public resources will be targeted to high potential areas. We don't belong to that category, high potential areas. And majority of the country was marginalized. And even as we talk about high potential areas in this country, you must get this fact right. These are statistics.
Yeah.
Kenya as a country is 80% dry, arid and semi-arid, 20% high potential, which means we are talking about 20% of the Kenya as a country taking more than 80% of the resources. So over time, we have been marginalized as a region. And that's why you see, in Ukambani, we should not be talking about lack of food. We have Tana River, we have Tana River, stretching between our land. Now, imagine if the government deliberately decided to lay the infrastructure for irrigation, so that we have a tunnel running from Tana River coming into Kitui, another coming from the river coming into Kitui, and then they let the county government do the small channels going to the farms. This area where you are seated, you'll be surprised. We can do 3 crops in a year.
All right. I want to hear the county commissioner's response because, I mean, you've been here before. Again, you came back,
yes,
so probably you were familiar very much with it.
But before you come, let me just conclude this point. What I was saying is, when you look at Kitui, Kitale, which is the basket for food in this country, they plant January, they harvest September. In Kitui, we plant in November. By February, we have, like now we're harvesting, which means you can plant again March, harvest June, and plant June, harvest November. So in reality, if we had water, we will feed this country. We don't need to feed even Kitui.
Let's see about inaction. And when I talk about inaction, I'm talking about the national government and the county governments, because it's a shared role in terms of preparing for the future.
It's something that we've been working for.
Okay.
And currently we have a program that we call the 20 projects, that is towards ending drought emergencies. And what we are doing with that project is trying to manage what we refer to as arid and semi-arid areas, so that the economic activities that we do there can be more beneficial and more friendly to the environment, managing the numbers, especially the livestock, and also having the right breed, of course the right pastures, depending on the climate of the particular area, and also planning in terms of provision of water for irrigation. Of course, priority has been to drinking water, but currently we have the Thwaken Dam under construction. We have Uman Dam under construction, and there is one that is in the pipeline, that is the Grand Falls, which is between the border of Kitui County and the Rakanithi. These are meant to end the perennial droughts, water scarcity problems within this region, and also improve in terms of agricultural activities. Because the Grand Falls is meant also to be used for irrigation other than production of power. There are also other aspects in terms of value addition, so that you can also be able to provide lines to value and whatever is being produced within the county. The county government and national government are doing an aggregation center at Kanyonyo, which is meant to encourage processing of whatever is produced from within Kitui. Of course, we are also supporting the vaccination process to improve our breeds and also supporting the farmer in terms of insurance covers to cover them from the drought losses. These are some of the activities that we are jointly doing with the county government so that we can cushion the farmer in case of any droughts, and also try to end over-dependence on rains, and also try to modify our way of farming and ensure that we can produce, as Mheshimiwa is saying, throughout the year.
All right. At this point, probably, Mheshimiwa Makani, because we shall introduce the story shortly. I want us to talk about the turnaround story, because Kitui County suffers a tragedy in both when there is sun and when there is rain. Because not long ago we were talking about the number of people who died being swept downstream during the floods down here in Zaoni. You can't explain that paradox of a county that suffers during the sun, and then 2 months down the line it rains, and there is no trace of where that water goes. What kind of picture does that paint, and how do we turn around such a story, particularly in counties like Kitui, Tana River, and all these other counties?
Actually, if you look at the master plan for development of dams in this country, the government had very good plans to build big dams along some of these big rivers. And the idea was to be able to stop the water from going to the ocean and use that water to do irrigation, or for either livestock use or domestic use. Now, what has happened over time? Most of these UD dams have remained on paper. They have never been done. If you drive about 3 kilometers from here, you find Uman Dam, just next to the town here. It has been there since 2008. How many years have we from 2008? About 18 years. It has never been completed. If that dam was completed, it would provide water to this town, and it will do irrigation, that part of the town. But it hasn't been completed. So I see a situation where the government is very good at saying we will do, but when it comes to doing, they don't do. I just want to give you an example from what the commissioner said. We have an institution called National Drought Management Authority in this country. If you look at that authority, because it's a parastatal, the main objective or their main role is to be able to predict emergencies like what we are going through, come up with the mitigating measures, and prepare the country. Provide what we do early warning systems, so that by now they should have been able to tell the country late last year that from our analysis, this country will be going through this level of drought. Yesterday we were discussing that institution, and actually we were saying more likely we deny them budget, because we are giving them money, which is taxpayers' money, and they are not preparing the country for drought. Okay. So I think time has come when people must be accountable. If you are given a responsibility and you are not performing as per the expectation of that office, I think you agree with me. It's good you pave way, other people coming. Otherwise we'll have a country where we keep on talking. These days, I'm sure you are aware, in the old days, ukiuliza these guys watakwambia, mulijua mtu alikuwa anaitwa Gwata Francis, mnamjua? Alikuwa anasema kesho mvua itanyesha saa hii, weather itakuwa namna hii. Alafu inakataa kunyesha. Si mnamjua? Siku hizi, because of technology, you can be able to predict what will happen tomorrow at 1. They say it will rain tomorrow at 1, and by 1 inaanguka. Mnaona? Wanasema kesho asubuhi kutakuwa na njua. Unakuta it is this njua. So with this kind of technology, it means we can use technology to predict our weather, predict the climate, and prepare for eventualities like what we are going through.
All right.
Boss.
Quite interesting.
Which I think we are not doing as a country.
All right. Nancy Kware was down Kitui South constituency in a place called Muda and down towards Musenge. There's an emerging issue there, and that is the issue of security. When you have illegal herders coming to Kitui and obviously causing yet another conflict that raises above security questions. And we'll pose that question later to the County Commissioner. But first of all, that story by Nancy Kware.
Kitui County has been listed among counties affected by drought, leaving close to 200,000 people in dire need of food.
There has been relief food brought in from special programs ministry. It may not be adequate, but at least we try to target the most needy, those who will not survive without that kind of assistance.
About 100 kilometers away from Kitui town, our endeavors lead us to Musenge area in Kitui South constituency. Here, it is not just about hunger, but also about survival. Residents from 3 villages of Thangilani, Cheni and Kipuyo are decrying constant attacks by camel herders fleeing drought from other counties.
Mwaka uliopita ilikuwa tarehe 20 mwezi wa Januari. Walinikuta kwa shamba yangu wakati walipopika, nikawauliza kwa nini nyinyi mnaleta gamia hapa kwa shamba yangu. Wakati nilikuwa najaribu kupika gamia itoke karibu na shamba, basi akatoa kisu yake akanitunga wapi hapa, nikaanguka chini.
Walikuja wakachoma nyumba za watu karibu nyumba 10, wenyewe wana makao, wakakimbilia usalama mahali pengine, na hata hawana chakula ilichomwa yote.
According to those affected, the herders have turned their farms into feeding grounds for their camels.
Ukipika hiyo gamia itoke kwa shamba, wanaanza maneno mengine mbaya. Kuambia wacha gamia ikule. Hii ni machani ya Mungu, hata ardhi ni ya Mungu, na hakuna mtu anaweza kuomba ardhi. Yule anaweza kuomba ardhi ni Mwenyezi Mungu.
Huyo mtu akisema hivyo na akona bunduki, akona rungu, utamfanyia nini? Wewe unanyamaza, unamwachia. Chakula yote inakuliwa na ngamia.
The situation has forced the locals to flee their homes. These are some of the makeshift structures where affected families are seeking refuge. They have been enduring cold nights and sure of when the next attack will happen.
Usiku kuna kuwa na baridi. Hiyo ni shida moja. Kuna nyoka za chini. Kuna miti wanaweza ndungwa na nini wakati wa kukimbia tukia na tochi. Watoto sasa hivi wanaenda shule lakini wanaenda tu akiongopa.
Imagine mtoto amelala kichakani, nafikiria kesho atakuja shule akiwa sawa. Kwa hivyo wengine wakilala msituni hawakuji shule.
The land this side is private. And that is what we've been trying to sensitize the camel hunters. But for crops, there have been interventions, even arresting those camels. But when it comes to bringing in the experts who can build a case and describe probably what has been destroyed, I think we have also been having a little bit of a challenge in terms of cooperation from the locals.
For Musenge residents, each day is a relentless search for food and water, and each night a cautious quest for safety. Despite the biting drought, the area locals are also forced to deal with insecurity issues, even as they hold on to hope that one day peace shall prevail, enabling them to rebuild their homes. Nancy Okware reporting from Musenge area in Kitui South, Kitui County.
That's the story by Nancy Okware. The County Commission will be responding to that a little bit later. But first of all, because we have audiences inside this hall, Nancy Okware, over to you. You can engage a few of them.
Thank you so much, John Jacob Kioria, na bila shaka kama ulivyosema kuna wananchi ambao wamekuwa na utulivu na wamekuwa hapa tayari tu kutoa mchango wao na vile vile kusema tu ni yapi ambayo wanahisi anastahili kufanywa ili kuhakikisha tatizo kama hili linakamilika humu nchini, ama suluhu ni zipi. Na nitaanza tu na wewe, utatazama upande huu. Utueleze kwanza jina lako na pengine swali lako ama mchango wako kwenye mazungumzo haya leo.
Asante sana. Majina yangu ni Mark Ndete. Yangu ni maoni, serikali itafute njia ya permanent ambayo itaweza kusuluhisha jambo la ama shida ya ukame katika kaunti ya Kitui, ndiposa wananchi waweze kuishi maisha mazuri. Asante.
Asante sana kwa mchango wako. Pia nitakuwa naelekea upande huu. Pengine tukianza na wewe, utasimama tu kidogo. Kisha utatueleza jina lako, utatazama tu upande huu. Tueleze jina lako, ikiwa una swali ama mchango wako ni upi.
Kwa majina naitwa Mariam Mahmud, mimi ni mkazi wa hapa Kitui Town. Nimefurahia kwamba leo hii MP wangu kwamba yuko katika budget ya committee ya Drought. Lakini la kushangaza ni kwamba tumekuwa tukiona ukame kila wakati. Naye amekuwa miongo mitatu na ana maoni. Nimemuona leo kwamba yuko na maoni. Yeye kama kiongozi, yeye ndiye tegemeo letu. vipi atakavyofanya tuone kwamba hili baada njaa halitukabili sisi hapa. Kweli sisi watu wa town hatuna mashamba, lakini tuko na mashamba nje ya town. Tuliona hivi majuzi kulikuwa na replacement ya mbuzi. State Department ya Livestock waliwahi kutuletea, ambapo PS wa Livestock Jonathan Mweke alileta mifugo. Mtu mmoja alikuwa akipata mbuzi, replacement ya mbuzi 5, lakini kimimi haikututosha na ilifikia wachache, ambapo baada njaa likiingia na tufikia wengi. So mimi ninavyo, swali langu ni kwamba kwa viongozi ambapo tuko naye Bwana Makali kama ndiye MP wetu hapa, yeye kipindi hicho mbuzi 5 tukiletewa, naye pia alitafuta wafadhili wake, alikuwa akitoa mbuzi 1. Sasa hii chakula ikifika, tunaona tunaitwa kwa chief, chakula kikitoka kwa ofisi ya county commissioner, unapata mtu anapata gorogoro moja, mtu uko na family ya watoto 10, haitoshi.
Wacha tuchukue swali la mwisho kwa kifupi. Utaanza na jina lako, utaangalia upande huu na swali lako kwa kifupi.
Jina langu naitwa Consolata Movea. Nataka kushukuru mheshimiwa, ameongea jambo la maana sana. Amesema kama president wote wale wamekuwa katika serikali wangekuwa wameangalia hii janga la njaa la Kitui, imekuwa janga kutoka hata kabla hatujazaliwa. Na hawa mapresident wote hakuna mtu alifikiria kuchukua hiyo mto ya Tana River, mto ya Athi River, watuletee maji ili sisi tuwe tunapanda chakula ama tunapanda mboga tuweze kusaidika. Hasa nataka kumwambia mheshimiwa ajaribu sana kutusaidia hiyo kitu ifanywe, kwa sababu is coming governor. Akikuwa governor pia aingie zaidi tupate maji.
Asante. Hayo maoni ya hapa. Sasa wacha nirejeshe ufukani kwake John Jacob Kioria, tuendelee na mazungumzo yetu.
Absolutely. Quite interesting questions coming in. And I'm sure you've been able to note some of the areas of response. But before we do that, because we have bills to pay, let's go back to studio, pay bills, and then come back. We shall pick up the conversation. Way back from Kitui County, the Kitui Multipurpose Hall. We continue with this multi-stakeholder conversation regarding response to the drought. There are questions that were posed by the audience, and they will respond to them shortly. And of course, let's make the responses short because, again, also time is quite constrained. But let's begin with the story that Nancy Okware executed regarding the security situation, particularly in Kitui South, those areas of Musenge. You've had people who are complaining that they've been displaced completely by the insecurity being brought about by illegal herders who are grazing in Kitui South. How is government responding to that?
I would say that the issue of camels and Kitui South, the borderline with Tana River, has been there for a long time. And it did not only affect the Kitui South area, but also the northern part of Kitui, that is Mwingi North, Mwingi Central, especially the areas of Mwingi East and New sub-counties, and Ngomeni area in Chuso. But one of the issues that we dealt with at first, the first time I was here, was to push them back and also prosecute where we felt that there are offenses committed. Secondly, the government was able to assist us with recruitment of 250 NPRs. And in Kitui South, we have around 50 of them deployed and armed, trained, working alongside with the police officers. We also did an intervention with the county government constructing quite a number of police stations, which we are supposed to deploy officers. One that was completed is Mandogoi, and that one is in Chuzo sub-county in Mwingi North. It was opened as a GSU camp, and it has been able to pacify that area. I was in Musenge area, the entire Muda, the areas that are affected by camel invasion on Friday last week. We went round and we were in agreement that the camels should be pushed to beyond Livadua.
Okay. Pushed back?
Yes.
Okay.
Towards the game reserve.
Okay.
One of the main challenges that we have is that that area borders the game reserve, and there is also a dispute as to where the boundary of the game reserve and settled areas is. The game reserve is also not well managed, and because if it were, then probably we could manage the deployment of livestock within that area. So what we are doing at the moment is just to do a pushback towards Tana River, and also the NPR are supposed to play a key role in that area. The reason as to why the other areas have been managed and not Kitui South is something that we also want to understand better, and that's why we are going back there tomorrow morning. Okay. So that we can also try to find out why things did not work well even after we entered and given instructions last year.
Okay, quite interesting. Mheshimiwa Makali, you have two questions from your voters. Very quickly.
Wacha kwanza kabla sija jibu maswali ya watu wangu hapa niongezee tu vile commissioner amesema mambo ya usalama. Usalama katika sehemu yetu ya Kitui South na along the border, sisi kama viongozi wa Kitui County tulikutana na National Integration and Cohesion Commission. Na tukakubaliana mambo manne walitakiwa wafanye ili tuweze kumaliza shida ya pale. Jambo la kwanza ilikuwa ni tuwekewe beacons. Tujue mpaka ya Kitui na mpaka ya Tana River. Ndio mtu akiwa Kitui ajue ako Kitui na mtu akiwa Tana River ajue ako nini? Kama uko Tana River na wewe ni mgeni wetu, ukiwa uko Kitui na wewe ni wa Tana River, ujue wewe ni mgeni wetu. Na mgeni akiingia kwa wenyeji, hawezi akawa anaenda kulala bedroom. Ana behave kwa sababu ni nani? Ni mgeni. Kwa hiyo tukasema kwanza tuweke hiyo mpaka. Ya pili ni ile ya police reserve. Na nashukuru commissioner ya kwamba wao walikuja. Ya tatu tulikuwa tumesema ya kwamba tukiweka hiyo mpaka, ile police stations governor wetu Malombe amejenga, ziwekwe askari. Ndio askari wanachunga mpaka. Kufikia sasa mnajua na wengine watu walitoka Tana River, wakavunja police station wakasema ni yao, wakang'oa mabati wakaenda nayo. Hiyo tukasema hiyo ni criminal, tungependa kuona watu wameshikwa. Hiyo ilikuwa ni jambo la tatu. Na jambo la mwisho tukasema kulingana na katiba yetu, serikali kuu inatakiwa ihakikishe kila mwananchi wa Kenya anaishi na usalama. Usalama upo. Si tulisema hivyo namna hiyo. Kwa hivyo yule mtu ana jukumu kubwa ni serikali kuu kuhakikisha kwamba hao watu wasukumwe waende mahali wanatoka. Lakini nyinyi watu wa Kitui waulize, kwa nini hao watu wanakuja huku kwetu? Si tunatafuta nyasi. Yenye inamaanisha sisi tuna nyasi na wao hawana nini? Tungependa kuona watu wetu wakiweka mbuzi, wakiweka ng'ombe, tutumie hiyo nyasi yetu tuweze kuendeleza uchumi wetu. Si sawa? Kwa hiyo ili kumaanisha ya kwamba sisi tukiweka mbuzi na ng'ombe tutakuwa utajiri utaingia. Kwa sababu wao nyasi imeisha na sisi tuna nini? Kwa hivyo kwetu mvua ikinyesha miezi miwili, tuna nyasi ya kutosha. So bwana commissioner, what I would want to say is to encourage our people, sisi tuweke hiyo ngamea na tuweke ng'ombe na tuweke mbuzi. Yao ikije kutana na yetu ikute yetu imejaa huko, yao iondoke iende. Si utajiri utakuwa kwetu. Mali yangu nimesema mambo ya vile tungesaidia. Ukiangalia serikali ya Sudan na Egypt, vile nimesema, mto ni moja tu, inaitwa River Nile. Ile matunda unaiona kwa supermarket hapa imetoka Egypt. Inatoka kwa hiyo mto. Wao wametumia huo mto, serikali ilijitokeza ikasema sisi kama serikali ya Sudan na sisi kama serikali ya Egypt tutaweka pesa ya serikali tuhakikishe ya kwamba maji imefikia watu wetu. Ile pesa inahitajika tuweze kutoa maji Tana River na Athi River ikuje Kitui, sio pesa ya county government ya Malombe. Ni pesa ya serikali kuu. Tungependa kuona serikali kuu ikitenga pesa kama bilioni 300, 400 ituwekee tu mara moja na ituache sisi tuendelee na maisha. Lakini tukisema tuweka na ile ya Malombe, hata nikiwa gavana wenu tukiweka na hiyo hatutaweza. Kwa hivyo we need a very well deliberate move for the national government to lay the infrastructure, the main infrastructure. Ile mtaro kubwa inaleta maji. Wakiweka hiyo hii ingine kidogo aniachie. Itawekea kwa mashamba tulime, tulishe Kenya. Hatulisha sehemu moja. Tulishe wapi? Tulishe Kenya. Ile ingine hii jambo ya kupea watu mbuzi 5 ama kama ile yangu nilipeana mbuzi 2 kwa kila mboma. Hiyo si sustainable. Sasa nakwambia ukienda zile PS mweka alipeana labda zote zimeenda na ukame. Lakini kuna kitu commissioner ameongea juu yake. Ya maana sana ningependa watu muisikize. Kitu inaitwa insurance scheme. Yaani serikali iweke pesa ya kuinsure. Ndio mbuzi yako ikikufa, insurance inakulipa, mfue kirudi unanunua mbuzi nyingine unaweka kwa shamba. That is the way to go. That we need a sustainable way. And one of the them is to make sure that we have enough money under that insurance scheme, so that when the drought comes and it kills our goats, then tutaweza restock. Ama serikali wana mpangilio ya kwamba ikiona drought limekuja kulingana na ile shirika lilikuwa limesema mbele yake, tukijua kutakuwa na drought mwezi wa 5, mwezi wa 4 tunanunua hizo mbuzi zote, tunapeleka adhiriva, tunachinja, zinakuwa nyama, tunapea mkulima pesa naweka kwa mfuko, mfuko ikianguka anatoa pesa kwa mfuko, ananunua nini? Mbuzi tena. Hiyo ndio njia ya kuhakikisha kwamba tumeweka pesa kwa watu wetu na tunawasaidia uchumi nafanya nini? Inapanda. Hakika ndio maswali yalikuwa yameulizwa. Basically tukienda njia hiyo tutakuwa tumesaidia nchi. Lakini sisi, wacha nikwambie ndugu yangu, sisi kwa sababu sisi ni wanasiasa, sisi tunasema tumeona mpangilio ya kwamba ni kama serikali zile zimechukua Kenya tangu tuingie tupate uhuru. Kumekuwa na mpangilio wa kuhakikisha wale watu wametoka huko sehemu zimekauka, sisi tukae maskini mpaka kufa kwetu. Na watoto wetu wakae maskini mpaka kufa. Na wajukuu wetu wakae maskini mpaka kufa. Wakati umefika tuseme sisi kama Wakenya, hii ndio nchi yetu. Na sasa hii mahali imefika, wapende wasipende, sisi ndio tutalisha hii nchi. Watupatie maji, watupatie insurance, tusaidie hii nchi. Hii nchi songe mbele.
All right, quite interesting. And Commissioner, you had also raised that matter, and I wanted to emphasize on it, that Kitui has a lot of potential, particularly when it comes to pastoralism. It's an pastoral county, but it also has very huge potential in terms of pursuing pastoralism.
Yeah, I would say vile wakati nimekuwa hapa na sija kuwa hapa muda mfupi. Mimi hata nimesomea hii Kitui. Nikiwa mwanafunzi nilikuwa hapa. Na ninajua mvua hata sio vile mheshimiwa anasema miezi 2. Wiki 3, wiki 4. Mvua imetosha ya nyasi. Huo ndio ukweli. Hata ukiangalia ng'ombe na mbuzi saa hii, mwezi mkasema zimeharibika, zinaonekana bado ziko na afya. Yule anauza mbuzi yake pale Mudha, hausi kwa sababu ya njaa, anauza kwa sababu anataka kupata nini? Pesa. Na kuna hiyo interaction, kitu kingine nitakwambia, between watu wa Tana River na watu wa Kitui kwa hiyo Mudha market. It drives because of that interaction. The breeds ambazo wako nazo sana sana zimetokea pande hizo. So hiyo uhusiano huwezi kuua kabisa. But sisi sana sana watu wa Kitui hatujashika hiyo mambo ya ufugaji sana. Lakini wakati tunasema kuna kiangazi, mifugo inatoka kutoka hata mbali Mandela inaletwa hapa. Kweli kuna kiangazi ya mifugo? Hiyo ni clear indication kwamba kama wewe ungeweka mifugo yako, si bado ungekuwa unapata kitu. Lakini yule alipanda mahindi, nitasema tu vile nimekuwa nikisema, baada ya mwezi mmoja inakuwa kitu kama kitunguu. Haiwezi kumea, mvua yenye inanyesha haiwezi ifikisha mwisho. Bahati nzuri hapa Central nafikiri wamevunavuna kidogo. Lakini ukiangalia gharama ya kulima eka moja ya mahindi hapa, afadhali uingie sokoni ununue gunia moja kama uko na pesa. Lakini kama ungekuwa na mifugo yako, unauza moja, unapata chakula unaweka kwa nyumba, na zingine zinaendelea kufanya nini? Kulisha. So nikiangalia Kitui iko na 34,000 square kilometers. And the population is around 1.6 million. It is vast. Hatuja kuwa populated. Ranches tunaweza tengeneza easily, because wacha zile ngamia mnasema juu yake, kuna ng'ombe zinatoka pande ya Kajiado zinakuja pande ya Kitui South. So there is a high potential here that is not tapped by locals. But mtu akiwa nje anaiona na anakuja na tap, anatoroka. People are buying land here and the intention is to have ranches around. Lakini sisi wenyewe hatuja tap hiyo. Labda tufikirie kabla hatujauza mashamba yetu cheaply, tufikirie kile tunaweza fanya ambacho kinaweza stahimili hali ambayo tuko nayo ya ukame wa mara kwa mara. Kwa mimea ndio tunaweza lima ile inakuwa haraka haraka, lakini sana sana ukienda upande wa mifugo, mbuzi na ng'ombe, sanyama, huwezi kosea.
Mheshimiwa Makari, from the point raised by the county commissioner, because sometimes it's a paradigm shift in terms of thought.
Yeah,
and sometimes the citizens will need to be shepherded by their political leadership. What role are you going to be playing moving into the future? First of all, crop resistance, having to inculcate the culture of drought-resistant crops, and also importantly, venturing towards that area of pastoralism.
I totally agree with what the commissioner is saying. Actually, all the way from Kitui South, cutting across Kitui East, Mwingi Central, Mwingi North, we would have serious ranches where people can even be having 1,000 goats, 1,000 cows, so long as they are given that the support from the government for them to do that, and they are assured that the keeping of the ranch will not be interfered with. So I always say this. From where I sit, this county is a sleeping giant. From where I sit. Hii kaunti yetu hii watu wangu, hii ikiamka isimame hivi, Kenya itajua kuna kaunti inaitwa Kitui. It's only that, as the commissioner is saying, we have a very huge potential, but I don't think really we have tapped that potential. Now, the way forward, more so agriculture, because we're talking about drought.
Yes.
When you look at the latest agricultural policy, which is called agriculture growth and I think it's a sustainability policy, it talks about 3-4 elements.
Okay.
One element is to ensure that we do commercial farming. How do you do that? You take care of the inputs so that you ensure the seeds are good. You ensure that fertilizer is provided in good time. That's level one. Level two is where you talk about the marketing so that when people produce their products, they can market. Level three is now the research component, that our research institutions, the agriculture-related research institutions, need to be constantly to be doing more research so that they know which seed is good for which area. In that case, then it would be improving the productivity of the area. And then last but not least is the extension service. You know, if you remember well, and I'm sure Commissioner can remember, because in the old days, ile wizara ya agriculture, si mnakumbuka walikuwa wanatuma watu kwa mashamba,
extension officers,
extension, ukipanda namna hii fanya hivi, na watu walikuwa wanapata chakula. Siku hizi wamepungua sana, utakuta hata kauli zingine hawana, na ndio watu wanasaidia mkulima ili aweze kulima kwa ile njia inafaa. Kwa hivyo ni lazima pia kama county tuhakikishe kwamba tukiamua tunaenda upande wa ufungaji, ni lazima tuhakikishe kuna livestock extension officers, na wale wanaenda upande wa ukulima, sana sana hapa Kitui Central ni kulima, tunapewa agricultural extension officers. Ndio kama consulate hapa ameamua kulima, kuna ule mtu atamsaidia, kama ni kitunguu, hii ndio mbegu nzuri, hii ndio ndao wataweka, hii ndio fertilizer wataweka. Tukisaidiana hivyo, tutakuwa tumepata chakula ya kula na ya kuuza, na watu wetu watapata nini? So I think the way to go is to make sure that the 4 items I've mentioned, extension services, research, input provisions, and marketing of the product, that will shape us as a county.
As we near closing this matter, County Commissioner, last week the Cabinet approved the release of about 4.1 billion shillings to address the drought situation across the country. Of course, there have been other releases in November. I think in January also there was a release of several billions of shillings to go towards this. But particularly when it comes to Kitui, are you projecting that the numbers will go up? And if they do, how will you respond to it?
Of course, we do periodical evaluation of the situation, or situation appraisal, and the 188,550 that we are talking about is not static.
Okay.
It's subject to whether the rains will come or not. But even if the rains come, the crops cannot be grown and mature at the same time. Yeah. So we expect that the situation may not be good for probably the next 2-3 months. Therefore, probably the next evaluation may also find us in a not a so good situation. But we can't project figures until the evaluation professionally is done.
But you're adequately prepared if that eventuality comes?
We are prepared and we are advising the government accordingly. We are working closely with the county government, and whatever figures I'm giving, you'll get them also there.
All right.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, as we wind up, I want to paraphrase a citizen I interviewed yesterday from Mwingi, who talked about misplaced priorities and said, ukipata Kisumu kuna street lights, it doesn't mean Kitui ama Mwingi inahitaji street lights. Na akasema nitamulikwa na taa nikiwa na njaa. And I want you to speak to the aspect of misplaced priorities, and not just in Kitui, because even in some of these counties affected by drought, you realize sometimes you see some sense of misplaced priorities. I want you to speak to it as responsible leader.
Now, what has happened, if you look at our constitution, I think it's Article 118, it says that whatever you do for the people, there must be public participation. Why the need for public participation? The need for public participation is because the Englishman said, is the wearer of the shoe who knows where the pinch is most. So if I live in Kitui, it's only the people who live in Kitui who would know what are their priorities. So if you are a leader and you want to lead the people well, and lead them in line with what they want, you need to conduct public participation. And that's why I believe, as you do your county strategic plan, as you do your normal strategic plans, you need to bring on board everyone in that county so that you're able to pick their mind in terms of what do they want. If you go that direction, you'll never get to your priorities. And that's what I would want to encourage Kenyan leaders, that public participation is a constitutional provision, it is mandatory. So just don't wake up in the morning and say, nitawapatia barabara. Usiamuka useme nitawapatia maji. Kwanza uulize, mna haja ya maji. Ukiangalia saa hii mahali sisi tumekaa saa hii, na commissioner amesema, ile njaa tuko nayo hapa Kitui ya kati, sio ile njaa iko Mwingi North, sio ile njaa iko Mutitu. Kwa hivyo, ukiuliza watu wa Mutitu saa hii wanataka nini? Watakwambia labda wanataka chakula. Namba moja. Ukiuliza watu wa Kitui Central, watakwambia tumepata kidogo, saa hii tunahitaji kitu kingine. Kwa hivyo ni lazima kama kiongozi usikize wananchi. But just to sum it up, you know, you asked the commissioner a very difficult question in terms of, he said the situation is likely to worsen because of the numbers. But what is going to happen is, and this is what we are pushing ourselves as members of parliament, we are saying the next supplementary budget, which I'm sure the minister will be bringing to parliament, should be a supplementary budget which is targeted as addressing this national problem. Kwa hivyo kama tulikuwa tumesema tunajenga mabarabara ama tunajenga maji, saa hii ni kubadilisha hiyo pesa, tuseme kwanza tununulie watu wetu chakula ndio to save their lives before we do the roads. Because ukifanya mabarabara na watu wamekufa, nani atapita hiyo barabara? Kwa hivyo wakati tunahimiza CS Mbandi, the minister for the cabinet secretary treasury, that now, as he does this supplementary budget, can he now redirect the resources to address this matter, so that when the county commissioner tells us what wameongezea from 188 to 300,000, we have the resources to address this need. Right. Unless we do that, my friend, we'll be wasting time.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the Honorable Makali Mulu, Member of Parliament for Kitui Central, the County Commissioner Kitui, Mr. Erastus Boy, for joining us tonight. Now, audience wetu, asanteni sana kwa kuja. Let's clap for ourselves. Tumefanya kazi nzuri. And thank you for the patience. Tunashukuru sana. I want to hand it back to Brian Kimani for the rest of the special coverage of the drought situation in Kenya. Thank you.